today we're going to talk about the Escaping Exodus duology. So Escaping Exodus, which I always have to show off these covers because they're stunning. And then the sequel, Symbiosis. It's so cool. Look at them. Look at them in space. All right, so everything in frame. We can move these over a little. Okay, so like I do with most of my reviews and my should you reads, I'm going to first start off by just talking about my experience with these books, not really synopsis driven, in case you're someone who really doesn't like to know a lot before reading it, but you know where our tastes align and you want to just know how I felt, and I had a blast. I love how Nikki Drayden writes. While I was reading both of these books, I always wanted to be reading. Like, the activity of reading was so much fun for me. While I was reading these books, I always wanted to know what was happening next. It was one of those fast-paced experiences that actually really worked for me. I have been finding more and more that when I read, fast-paced experiences aren't always what I am wanting, and that is not the case with these guys. It was so good. Such great, enjoyable experiences. Everything you want when you want a book that makes you want to read, right? Like, I feel like that's an obvious thing, but that's just not a thing you always get in a book, and for me, that's what I got. This is a solid 4.5 out of 5-star series for me. There are some things that prevent it from being a 5-star series, and I'll talk about those as we go through the video, but I adore these books. I will read anything Nikki Drayden writes, okay? That is what I have learned. These are now, I think, the second and third books I have read in their backlog. I have one more to read before I've read all of their novels. Haven't even looked at their short stories yet, and I know those exist. I'm a Nikki Drayden fangirl. I love her imagination and how she writes. So what's the premise of this series? What are you going to get? So this is far future. Humans no longer live on Earth. We had to leave Earth, presumably because we suck. That is not a big focus of this story. We are in the future where humans now live on these space beasts. We utilize basically everything about these creatures while keeping them alive to travel and live throughout space. We get our food from them. We get structural materials. We get clothing. Like, everything is from living in this kind of ecosystem with these space beasts. So that's like the world we're in. And in the first book, we meet Seske. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but it's Seske. I never listened to the audiobook for this, so I could be saying it very wrong. But she is the heir to the space beast that she lives on. She is going to become the heir in this matriarchy one day. And we start with her waking up at an exodus. So escaping Exodus, that refers to how they leave one creature to another after they've used it up. So she's at the beginning of an exodus, and we watch the transition from one beast to the other in terms of the community, and we watch her having to take up more roles and transitioning into power while also having like some friendships and love interests that maybe aren't in a class system wise where it should be, kind of maybe like forbidden relationships and things like that. And also just as she learns about their culture and history, like something that she finds so exciting is this relationship between their culture and the space beast. But also, the more she learns about it, the more she has to come to terms with what they're doing. Okay, so that's like the premise. That's what's happening. You also have another point of view, so it's a dual perspective in both books, but it's a different duel. Seske's in both of them. But in one, you have Ada, and the other one, you have Doka. And I'm going to talk about all of them, because one of the things I love about this series are the characters. They are so vibrant to me. They are such individuals. So I've already briefly talked about Seske, but Seske, she is such a flawed princess. I don't think she's technically a princess in this world, but she is so flawed in the best way. She's very curious. She's loyal, but doesn't know how to protect those she loves. She's headstrong. She wants to buck tradition. She's great. And she only becomes more nuanced and complicated as the series progresses based off experiences that you see happen on and off page. I don't even know if I like her that much. Like, I loved reading her experiences. There are several moments where I'm like, why did you make that decision? That was not the smart decision, but it was, for her, the human decision. And I am all about that in books. And I don't know, there's just something about reading about a headstrong character that's always pretty fun. In the first book, you also have Ada. So she is Seske's best friend. They have known each other forever, but she lives in a lower class. She's kind of one of, I think, the beast workers. Like, she works with the organs and things like that to keep them running and make sure everything works out. And She has such an interesting arc in the first book. She's very talented. So she's an individual with a lot of natural talent. And it doesn't go to her head, but she definitely invests too much of her time into this occupation as identity, which I feel like is a very relatable thing. And then as her identity shifts because her occupation has to shift because of scenarios, it's fascinating. And she learns stuff about her family and the past. There's a lot of learning about why certain traditions are the way they are. And whether that's good or bad, or does it have a morality to it? Is it just essential? And so you get to watch Ada as she goes through different parts of her life, as she adjusts to new identities of herself because of that. Because her identity seems to be tied to her job. And not every individual is like that, but she very much is. Especially as it's harder to be close friends with the heir that's about to go into power because she's not of the same class as her best friend. They aren't really supposed to be in circles with each other. And then we have Doka. So Doka is of the same class as Seski, and they are supposed to mingle. And I can't say too much about him because there's plot involved, but what's interesting is I've already mentioned this is a matriarchy. And it's an extreme matriarchy. It's very heavy-handed how this is basically just like the reverse of our current patriarchy system, where a lot of the same things that we say about women today and how they can't be in power because they're too emotional, they're too fragile, are exactly said about the men. Like, it's pretty much just flip our patriarchy. It's a matriarchy. So it's interesting having this male character going through all of these things. Like, it's not abnormal to them. They don't feel jilted or anything, but that's for sure interesting, especially since he does have a head for figuring out situations and for being politically savvy, which is something that Seski is not. Like, Seski has like a head that's like kind of like, I know what I should do, but it's not what I want to do. Whereas Doka's better at like sacrificing things. Like, oh, he's so good. Like, so if you're not getting the gist, I love all of these characters, and you get to meet them extensively in these two books. And they are flawed individuals, but they are complex, and they are human, and they make human decisions, but sometimes they also, try and make decisions that are best for the whole. And I'm pretty sure it's these characters that made me love the books because it's primarily written in first-person point of view. And if I don't like characters in first-person point of view, I don't like books. Like, that just doesn't... It's not going to work. And all of these characters make decisions that make me angry, but I also was rooting for all of them pretty much the whole time. Another thing that I really loved about this series is the world building, are the complex cultures. Some things that I can mention because I don't want to go too in depth because I think discovering this world is really fun. But like I've already said, it's a matriarchy. It's also because of the constraints of living on these beasts, it doesn't have a population that can have more than one kid per family, so you have restricted breeding. And as a part of that, then you have a lot of adults and only one kid per family, and the families are these polyamorous families. You have multiple parent units. I think you have 9 parents per family or something like that. And you have different names for different husband-wife pairings and things like that. So it's very complicated, and there's a lot of emphasis on lineages and your lines. And the lines are in their hair because most of their hair texture on the beast that we're following is very similar to African American hair, and so it can have these intricate braids that are held. It's really interesting when we then meet other space beasts and we get to learn the cultures on the other ships and how it's different and what ethnicities were on each ship before it devolved, because a lot of this information, they don't really actually know who they are descendant from anymore. It's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So all of this was so interesting and beautiful to see. And then all the food they eat, because obviously they don't eat the same food we do because they're living off of the ecosystem of a space beast. Like, it's different food and different tastes and textures. And the logic of how you travel through a space beast is at times gross because it's very squishy, but also like so interesting. Like, the imagination of Nikki Drayden is so good. It's so good. So, let's see. Did I forget anything that I've written down? No, these are all the things I really loved. Now, why couldn't it be 5 stars? Obviously, I really love it, right? Obviously. I'm an endings girl. It's what I always say. For some reason, an ending has to be like really on point, and it's like an X Factor thing. It's not like you have to check off some boxes or anything. It's just I know when I like an ending. And I didn't hate either of these endings, but I didn't love them. And that's just like a thing. I think partially because these are pretty fast-paced books and the ending only gets faster, and I think that's when things get too fast for me. And then I don't get to like sit with these huge things that are happening, and I was just like blink my eyes and the story's done. And so I didn't necessarily mind the actual events, but the execution of the endings was just a little too fast for me. That said, I loved how fast both of these books read. They're each like 320, 300 pages. And they both have table of contents. If you've ever missed table of contents, they're in these books. And they're split into parts, and the parts are thematic for like the story, which I just love when authors play with narrative structure and are very intentional. And as if the art on the front of the book isn't enough, the book itself at each part will have these really nice pages, and at the start of each chapter, you have beautiful art at the top, and it's always the name of the character you're following, and then like a really cool like brief title that will like sort of imply what's going to happen, but it doesn't usually make sense till hindsight, and normally I don't like those. But here, I just thought it was so nice, and I'm so glad I own them. I can't wait to reread them. I love these books. Okay? So, yeah, I mean, otherwise, those are all my thoughts. Things that I loved about this that I hoped I would get from other books to help put things in context. So, I've read the whole Binti trilogy. I have a review for that, where I had a mixed bag, but the thing I loved about the Binti trilogy was the imaginative world building that also has, like, you travel on ships that are basically, I think, kind of whale space beasts, and there's a lot of really cool technology there. So I liked that part of Binti. Here, though, I got all of the world building sci-fi coolness with characters I was ride or die for, and it didn't fall into some tropes that the Binti trilogy fell into. And so for that reason, I just really love this. So it gave me that. And another one, The Stars Are Legion, which I read earlier this year, which I didn't really like the plot of, and I didn't connect to the characters, but again, had a fascinating world. Very organic, like what I've been describing here. Everything's really based off things you can get from other wildlife. There's not really metal-based things. Metal's not a resource you have. That's the same here. But I loved the plot and the political intrigue and the romances and the characters and the messiness of it all, and I cannot wait to reread it in a couple years because it'll just be great to cozy up with and say hi to these characters that I've really grown attached to. But if you were let down by either of those series but liked the world buildingness of those, you really, really need to pick up this. Like, for sure. Hands down. Like, yes. So that's it for this one. If you want to leave an emoji, I don't know, leave something that reminds you of space, or you can leave a whale, because I have mentioned like space beasts and like whales, and I always think of whales, even though I don't know if that's what these are. I think there are more tentacles involved. And also, these books do have content warnings usually at the beginning. I think for sure in Symbiosis, it had content warnings at the beginning that I saw. It had content notes. So you can check the book if there's anything, because I will say these err on the side of some body horror. There's definitely graphic scenes. This is a very harsh world. Like, there are a lot of cruel punishments. There's a lot of atrocities that happen that our characters learn about. So although I say I had a fun time, I also kind of, for me, this is kind of my, like, horror sci-fi. I don't know if other people would consider it horror sci-fi, but for me, it was unsettling at times. It had horrific things happen to people. It did have moments that I had friends not read it because of the body images and the horror of that sort of thing. So keep that in mind. That's probably something that I should also mention. And so I already told you what emoji to leave, went back into the review, and now let me know if you've read it, if you're going to read it, what other questions you may have for me. Have you read these books, and do you have other recommendations for things like these books? Because I would love to know. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.